In the previous episode, we looked closely at how the mental cage forms, how the mind replaces direct experience with concepts, how a living person becomes a file, how a moment becomes an interpretation, how reality turns into commentary about reality. We saw the mechanism. Past experience, expectations, evaluations, all of it creates a screen, and that screen gets projected onto everything. The first crack appears when thoughts become visible, because awareness itself is not a thought. But working directly with the mind is hard. It moves fast. It grabs attention almost instantly. That is why most mature traditions did not begin with analyzing complicated relationships or trying to fix the personality. They begin with something that does not support mental projections: nature. Across cultures, nature was used as an entry point. The Buddha awakened under the Bodhi tree, but even before that, monks went into the forest not for beauty, but to reduce sensory overload and the pressure of society's concepts. In Taoism, mountains were seen as a return to the Tao, not because there is more God in the mountains, but because there is less human noise. Christian hermits went into the desert. The desert is not a romantic image. It simply offers nothing to reinforce a social identity. Sufis practiced retreat in nature to weaken the nafs, the structure of self that feeds on social interaction. In the Vedic tradition, the forest stage of life, vanaprastha, meant stepping back from social roles to clarify attention. None of these traditions claimed that nature itself liberates, but nature creates conditions where mental noise becomes easier to notice. Most people sense this intuitively. In the city, there is a constant inner noise. One's walking down the street, arguing internally. One's sitting in a cafe and replaying yesterday's conversation. One's lying in bed, exhausted, but the mind still narrating. This is life lived as commentary. And then the same person goes into a forest. Breathing feels different, not just in the lungs, in awareness. For the first 10 minutes, thoughts continue, planning, remembering, evaluating, and then something shifts. The sound of wind stops being background. It becomes an event. The rustling of leaves feels attention. Attention slowly drops from the head into the body. Breathing evens out, shoulders lower. This isn't magic, it's a structural difference. Nature does not exist inside human concepts. A tree has no self-image. A flower does not compare itself to other flowers. A mountain doesn't worry about its future. There is no psychological story in their way of being. And when you are near that, the mind gradually loses support. There is nothing to argue with. The tree does not respond to your status. It doesn't know your story. It simply is. And in that simple isness, attention can finally rest from the habit of commenting. Next time you stand in front of a tree, notice the first impulse. You'll notice something like birch, beautiful, old, take a photo. This is automatic labeling. Now try something different. For a few seconds, don't follow the impulse. Don't suppress the thought, just don't continue it. Look without naming, without defining the species, without evaluating, without deciding whether it's beautiful. At first it feels strange, like something unfinished. Without words, the experience seems vague. But if you stay there, perception becomes wider. You begin to feel the texture of the bark, see light moving through the leaves, notice the density of shadow, the movement of air. This is not concentration, it's a shift in position. Perception becomes sensory instead of conceptual. Attention stops analyzing and starts receiving. At first it's subtle. Thoughts may still appear, but they are no longer the center. Focus shifts towards presence. Then something else softens. The sense of me, who is looking, becomes less solid. Perception remains, but the commentator fades. At this moment, the distance disappears. But look deeper. It's not the tree that disappears. It's the commentator. The stillness you feel is not the tree's stillness. It is not out there. It is the same stillness that exists underneath your thoughts. Nature does not create it. Nature simply does not drown it out. There is nothing mystical in it. It is the absence of mental distance. When the conceptual layer relaxes, separation disappears, and unity is felt. Modern research shows that when attention moves into direct sensory experience, activity in the brain's default mode network decreases. That network is responsible for autobiographical thinking and internal narration. When attention leaves the story of me and returns to immediate perception, the brain reduces its constant reconstruction of past and future. In everyday life, background thinking creates subtle tension. Planning, analyzing, replaying conversations, this stream becomes internal noise. The nervous system stays slightly mobilized even when there is no threat. But in nature, there is no social mirror, no expectations, no comparison, no demand to perform. Without evaluation, there is no perceived threat. The body gradually exits defensive mode. It returns to baseline regulation. This feels like relief, like healing, but it isn't treatment. It's a return to the natural background. Animals intensify this effect. Their awareness is primarily sensory and immediate. They live without psychological story. When a dog looks at you, it doesn't see your past conflict. It doesn't know your status. It responds to your current state. If there is tension, it senses it. If there is softness, it relaxes. Around an animal, it becomes harder to perform a role. In that direct contact, the mind often quiets faster than it does near a tree. There is just the moment. You stop being a character in your story. You become presence. That feels like relief, like temporary freedom from the internal structure. And here a subtle danger appears. You can become dependent on the forest. You can attempt to replace people with animals. You can want to escape because it's easier there. But if peace exists only under certain conditions, it is still conditional. That means the mechanism of the cage remains active. It is only temporarily softened. The tree is not the source of your silence. The animal does not create your presence. Nature reduces mental noise. It reveals that silence is already available, that it exists prior to interpretation. But nature does not dismantle identification completely. It points. If stillness is accessible next to a tree, then it already exists in you. Nature is a mirror, not the source. Hence, the goal is not to spend more time in forests and not to replace humans with animals. The task is to recognize the capacity to remain in presence regardless of conditions. Otherwise, silence becomes another object, another concept, another attachment. The biggest illusion is believing the path lies in withdrawal. Nature offers the softest entrance because it does not reinforce mental structures, but it is not the destination. Real freedom is autonomous presence, the ability to remain present in city noise. What is felt next to a tree must become available in dialogue, in conflict, in a loud office, in the subway. If presence disappears at the first sign of tension, it has not yet integrated. In the next episode, we will explore how silence becomes autonomous, how presence stops depending on external conditions, how it waves itself into everyday life, not as an escape from life, but as a return to it.